Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the school committee meeting of Monday, September 26th, 2016. First on tonight's agenda is the acceptance of the meeting minutes of September 12th, 2016.
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a vote. Thank you. Seeing nothing under communications, we'll go to Superintendents Report. Dr. Cron.
Thank you. This week, I had the pleasure of meeting with the Rockland Foundation for Education. Those of you who are unfamiliar, the Rockland Foundation for Education is a volunteer organization that was founded in 1996 by Richard Phelps, currently a school committee member, Ralph Gus Lordy, and Scott McKinley. And the goal of this organization is to support innovative teaching in the classroom. After 20 years of service, Scott McKinley decided it was time for him to step down. And I just want to thank him for everything he has done over the past 20 years and everything he continues to do. So saying goodbye to him in that role, I think, is a really big deal, and just want to acknowledge publicly and thank him for 20 years as president and leading this organization. At the same time, the board elected a new president, and that is Regina Quirk. And I will tell you that we are in excellent hands and are very, very fortunate to have Regina leading this organization. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the rest of the board members that are part of the Rockland Education Foundation. Kimberly Phelps Nelson is the vice president. Jim Bailey is the treasurer. Janet Lacombe is the secretary. Janet Can is a board member. Robert George is a board member. Scott McKinley is now a board member. Carol McGrath is a board member. Jack McGrath is a board member. Richard Phelps is a board member. And Mike Ross are board members. To date, they have raised over $500,000 for individual grants that have been implemented throughout the district. More importantly, though, they are a connection between what teachers do every day in the classroom and the community. They are an example of when we say community involvement, we are talking about organizations like the Rockland Education Foundation. So thank you very much, Scott McKinley, for your service of 20 years. Your legacy will continue on and on and on. And also personally, you're an inspiration to me, so thank you for your service. The new grant cycle has been launched, and it began on Monday. And the foundation announced a brand new grant, a $10,000 McKinley Impact Grant. So each cycle will not only be looking for grants that are between $1,000 and $2,000. They've now announced a $10,000 McKinley Impact Grant. So good luck to all the teachers who are filling out their applications. My second item is part of my entry plan. I have a couple coffee hours that I've put out there. I'm hoping some of you in the public might come and join me. The first one is tomorrow morning at 7:30 in the superintendent's conference room. So if you just come in to the superintendent's entrance, we'll make sure you find the right room. And please don't let it just be me and the Keurig. I would really like someone to join me. So I'll be there at 7:30. The second one will be October 4th at 6 p.m. One other thing I wanted to mention, we had an Internet Safety Day. We had Katie Greer, who's a nationally recognized speaker on Internet safety. She gave presentations to the entire middle school, the entire high school, and then another presentation in the evening. Each of these presentations were designed specifically and to be age appropriate. She did a wonderful job. And I want to thank Ethan Schnabel and the Rockland Police Department and the parents who made that possible. And also this was funded by the Rockland Education Foundation. So again, thank you to them. One other thing, I'd like to thank Ed Jacobs, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. We've been partnering with them now for the past 3 years, particularly on drug prevention activities and risk prevention activities. And I just want to thank the Plymouth County Drug Abuse Task Force for their continued work with the Rockland Public Schools. As we know, these issues are not going away, and we also, I think, as a school department, we accept our responsibility for educating the whole child, and so we take this duty very seriously, and it sure is made a lot easier knowing we have such partners like this. So thank you for the resources they continue to bring in, and that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Cron. Any comments or questions for the committee for Dr. Cron? I just want to echo your congratulations to Scott McKinley and thanking him for the years of work that he's done. And Mr. Phelps, you and all of the board members, past and present, these people make a huge difference for Rockland students every day. It's really a fantastic organization, and we've been very lucky to have an individual like Scott McKinley be on the Bulldog team for all these years. Thank you, Scott. Next on tonight's agenda, under audience, I believe we have Ms. Paulding. Dr. Cron?
Ms. Paulding?
Hi, I'm Kathy Paulding, and I'm president of the Rockland Education Association. And I asked to meet with you today to discuss question 2, which is going to raise the cap on the charter schools. So I have with me Steve McGinnis from MTA, and Julie Minahan is spearheading this for the Rockland Education Association, our fight to defeat question 2.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you for having me here tonight and listening to what I have to say about question 2 on the upcoming ballot here in November. As you probably already know, the question 2 deals with the cap on charter schools here in Massachusetts. There is currently a cap of 72 charter schools, Commonwealth charter schools in Massachusetts. Question 2 would allow that cap to be increased by 12 charter schools per year forever. So if question 2 were to pass, then the number of charter schools could theoretically increase from 72 to 84 to 96. If you take 12 times 10, it's 120, so 10 years from now, we'd be close to 200 charter schools in Massachusetts. Charter schools take public funding from public schools. When a student leaves a public school and goes to a charter school, the funding goes with that student. There is a short amount of time where there is reimbursement to the sending school, but after that short amount of time, the money goes off to the charter school. So public schools are losing lots of money here to charter schools. I asked Julie to give you some documents there. I wanted to make note of this list of schools. It's a two-sided list. These are school committees who have endorsed our resolution to vote no on question 2, and that's why we're here tonight, to ask you to do the same. One side of this list is the MTA list that I printed out today. There's over 120 school committees who have already voted to endorse this proposal. On the other side, this is the Mass Association of School Committees list. And again, I went to their website today and printed this list out. What's interesting to note is at the bottom there's a statement from MASC that says they support this effort, but they allow individual school committees to do as they see fit. So MASC is clearly allowing you to do this as many of these other schools have done. Just a couple of other notes, and then I'll try to answer some questions if you have some. The state Democratic Party has opposed charter school expansion, and they voted nearly unanimously to oppose this. Also, Mayor Walsh from Boston, who is a charter school proponent, is an opponent of this particular question because there's no funding mechanism included in the question. So while he is in favor of charter schools, being in Boston, and there are a number of issues there that are going on, he's in favor of charter schools, not in favor of public schools continuing to lose money. Boston, I believe, loses close to $135 million per year to charter schools. So the Democratic Party is in favor of voting no, and Marty Walsh, of course, is in favor of voting no. A number of mayors have put together a letter to send to the papers saying that they find the question 2 TV ad, which I'm sure you've all seen, that is endorsing yes on this. They find it very misleading and very disingenuous, and so do we. Some of the claims that they make, and they just don't seem quite possible. So we're not the only folks who say this is, these ads don't appear to add up. So we've asked you to take a look at our resolution. This is customized for Rockland. If you take a look at that fourth whereas, it talks a little bit about money and how much Rockland is losing. Remember, these are estimates, hard to pin down, but basically around 900,000 both last year and this year. Across the state, last year estimated $408 million, $456 million estimated this year. As I said, Boston is losing $135 million. Brockton, which is not too far from here, over $4 million. Cambridge, $11 million. Chelsea, $8 million. Fall River, $12 million. So lots of places are losing lots of money, and that only stands to increase if the number of charter schools increase. So we're here tonight with an ask. We're hoping that you can support public schools as you're here as public school committee members. So clearly you have a stake in public education. We're hoping that you can support our position and adopt our resolution.
Questions from the committee?
Just curious, I don't see Boston listed on here anyway.
The Boston
City
School
Council.
Committee, yeah, and I don't, they may have, there is also a list of city councils, and I did not include that simply because I didn't have enough room at the bottom there, but my guess is the Boston City Council has.
Boston
Yeah.
School Committee is appointed by the mayor. It's not an elected
Correct.
board.
Well, having the mayor endorse not going after this question might not be the best course of action. I noticed that also, is this question coming up to some other South Shores and Snow Abington? Have they not? I mean, just wondering what our surrounding towns have done. Nothing from Weymouth.
See Whitman Hanson.
I see
Yeah.
Whitman Hanson. I don't see Abington. I don't see
No Hingham, no
Hanover.
Norwell.
Sure.
Have those questions, is it come in front of those school
I can
committees?
only
Because
tell
obviously
you
you're
what-
showing us who said yes, you didn't, not showing us who said
No
no.
one has, no one who we've approached
Okay.
has said no. That list was about 70 a month ago. So field reps like me are working to get out to folks like you. Most places only meet once a month. So, we're trying to get out there. I would assume that field reps are going to those school committees as well. Again, no school committee has said no, at least to my knowledge, no school committee has said no.
I want to thank you for being here tonight.
Sure.
I think that you mentioned the ads that have been on TV, and they certainly present sort of an ideological view on what their position is on this question. I personally would support us supporting this, endorsing of no vote on this.
Thank you.
I think that it's important for people to know just how profoundly this would affect funding to Rockland Public Schools should this pass. Charter school measures are already affecting us as far as what funding we receive from the state, and I think that this would profoundly affect us further. So I would be comfortable endorsing a no vote on this.
Would you entertain a motion, Mr. Chairman?
I will.
Yeah, I just think, I agree with Dan. The only thing that, I mean, I don't necessarily think that we're losing as much money as you might portray here, but my concern of this whole thing is that it's an unlimited, 12 a year unlimited.
Right,
a lot.
right.
They're clearly in places like Boston and these major cities. Charter schools are working for some of those kids in the inner city that need it. Quality of education in some of those neighborhood schools is horrendous. So some of these charter schools are working for those kids. I don't think they're necessarily working where, school districts are doing well. They're disingenuous. They tell you they take everybody. They don't take everybody.
Right.
It's kind of like vocational education. They don't take everybody.
Let me look-
But I think it's the cap idea that it's
Well, the
12 a
point you
year
make-
forever. I think
The
that's
point
what
you make
bothers
is a
me the
good
most.
one. At another school committee meeting I was at, there was a school committee member who, like you, was very knowledgeable about charter schools, and she made a very good point. She said in other places in the country where there are no caps, sometimes charter schools are not as effective as some of the ones we have here, and it could very well be because there's an unlimited number of charter schools. And so therefore, maybe they're not quite as effective as some of the ones
With
that
more
we have
numbers, you
here.
lose oversight, and I can
Oh, I
just
think
see
so,
that
yeah.
having, you barely have enough oversight as it is what you have, so.
Correct.
Can I say something? Please. All right. I disagree with you a little bit, Mark, because I work in Boston Public Schools. I see students coming back from charter schools. They send them back to us because what happens is they look at it and kids tell me, you know, I got a C and I'm not going to make it in charter schools. You know, I'm not going to pass MCAS. I'm not going to do this. And they send them back. And the things we see, I see personally, is they come back to us right after the census is done, and the money is already given to the charter schools.
Correct.
Okay, and they come back, and all of a sudden,
Correct.
you know, come next week, we'll see a big influx of students coming back from charter schools.
You're 100% correct.
And I would definitely, you know, I would vote for.
Well, they
this
call
resolution.
themselves public schools, except to me, there are several major differences.
Yeah.
I worked in a public school for 38 years, so I know what it's like there. I was the guidance director, so I know about kids who struggle and have a hard time getting through. You and I, as guidance director, had no place to send that student. We had to work with them, we had to get them through school, and we had to try to stop them from dropping out. A charter school, as Mr. Mills said, has an option to say, you need to go back to your sending school. And in fact, sometimes they make that happen.
Yeah, they do.
They sure do. They make that happen. Plus, on the other end, there's, you know, the only acceptance criteria for somebody to come to Rockland High School is to live in Rockland. If you go to a charter school, now you have an application process, and then you have a lottery. And the lottery is there's supposed to be oversight on the lottery. You know, I think they're just looking for
I make a
dollars.
motion to
So
accept
there
this
are some major differences.
We have a motion to endorse a no vote on question 2.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Go.
Thank you very much for
Appreciate
your
you being
vote.
here with us
Thank you
tonight.
for your
I hope a
time.
lot of people were watching to learn a little bit
Yeah.
about that particular
Very
ballot.
informational.
Thank you so much.
Our research tells us we need 1.6 million no votes to defeat this.
Wow.
Hopefully,
you
got
we need
five
about,
here.
hopefully we need about 20 less now. And maybe with the television audience, a couple hundred less.
Thanks for
One more
making
than
the
the other
effort.
side is all you need.
That's right.
Thank
That's
you.
right. That's right. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Next on tonight's agenda, we have reports. We have 3 financial reports, one from the school department, one from the high school student activities, and one from the middle school student activities account.
For both July and August.
We have 3 motions,
Six motions.
6 motions.
6 motions, excuse me,
Second.
for 2 months, and 6 seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, that's a vote. Building rentals for August. Hopefully, we'll see these picking up a little bit as the year goes on. Next on tonight's agenda, under old business, we have our out-of-country trip proposal to Guatemala. Dr. Cron.
I'm wondering if the committee has further questions. I know we have, yeah, please join us.
I have one question. It's easy.
So I know the committee was provided with some follow-up material that was requested.
Yes. Good evening, ladies. Thank you for being here with us tonight and coming back to bring us some more information. I know the committee had some further questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to anybody who would like to ask a question. Fire away.
I had one easy one. I thank you. You included the travel clinic. I think I was, and it's probably me reading, just concerned with the way it was worded because it didn't sound until I read further in the beginning that they had to go. It says I am capable and will complete these, and then before that, I just think it could be very clear, like just one sentence. All of these points are mandatory because if they say no, I get how you're wording it. You worded it so that people could make a choice that they were capable of not. I think that's very great, but I think you have to be very clear that if all these criteria are not met, you cannot go. So it's not like you actually have a choice. I think it's, I mean, they're adult enough that you have a choice or you don't. I think it just wasn't worded clearly. You had it there. That's just my opinion, though.
I have a question on that. Dr. Cron, and again, this is probably going to put another wrinkle into this whole thing and push it off again, but I'm not sure that we can legally do that.
There. Make them go.
Well, I don't know that we can legally do that. We can't legally make them get vaccinations to come to school. We can't legally make athletes take concussion.
No, you can't make them
exam.
go. You're right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. You can't make them go, but at least if they go to the travel clinic and they get educated, it
I
takes the
know, I'm just
liability off them
saying,
to say that they went.
We may have more leeway given that it's an out-of-school extracurricular. I
Yeah,
think-
that's what I'm
And we
asking.
can
I'm just-
check with our attorney on
I'm
that.
just not
but-
sure,
but
because I just don't
think
want to...
Given the circumstances and given the fact that it's outside of school and it's not something that every child has to do, I think we would be within the law, but I'd double-check that with our attorney before.
And I think
I can check that
as
out.
an organization, we could say that if you do not I'm pretty sure EF has requirements as well, because I've done a trip with them before, and I think,
What
Yeah,
you
that can
minimally
come
have
from
to
there.
have.
Yes.
they
Yeah.
have requirements that you have to meet,
In other words,
not,
specify that the requirement comes from
Yeah.
them, not
yeah.
us.
So we can specify, we can say Worthy Village requires you to have these.
Mr. Norris, is that what you?
At a minimum,
would
so that they know the other
would that
ones are-
satisfy-
I mean, that's not my only concern, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I know there's an issue, there's always been an issue about, you can't force
Yep.
kids to take concussion tests.
Right.
Not in this
You
case.
can't force a lot of things, you can't force them to get vaccinations to come to school and all that kind of stuff. But if her organization says, you have to have them to come to our event,
Right.
that's not us telling them they have to.
Correct.
That's her telling them they
Right.
have to. So that
We
takes
can
the
word it that
liability
way.
off of us saying you have to have them.
Yep.
Mr. Phelps had,
Yeah, how many other schools in the area have sent people down to Guatemala with you folks?
UMass Dartmouth has attended a trip with
UMass Dartmouth, that's a college, yeah.
Oh, high schools.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
At minimum.
Nope, we have not done a high school trip at this point, but we are currently working with.
And how many people from your organization are on site in Guatemala?
There would be 3 of us during that trip.
3 of you, okay. 3 of you plus our,
Plus these 2, yes.
yeah. Well, I have to say, I'm not comfortable with the whole thing. I wasn't comfortable 2 weeks ago, and I'm less comfortable now. That's where I stand.
I think the last time Mr. Phelps also asked, and we all talked about having, what was some sort of in-writing emergency plan. Something happens. You already experienced what happened on a foreign trip already. If something happens and we have 12 kids there, now 1 chaperone goes with that 1 kid, there's a problem. We now have a 1 to 11 chaperone ratio if there's only 2 of you there. And I understand that just your organization's there. So you're not Rockland Public Schools, those 2 are.
So
I
as we
guess-
discussed last time, we would send all of the chaperones and all of the kids because we would have a small group that would be able to fit in the shuttle that would be with us at all times. So if one child got hurt and needed to go somewhere, like we said last time, everyone would be in the van going. We would not leave a 1 to 11 ratio.
Is there any emergency medical service there, like ambulances and
Yep.
things like that? Or are we
Yep.
dependent upon the van to go to the hospital? I think you said 45 minutes away.
Nope, there's ambulances.
Then that's going to be a 45-minute ride.
From where from the hotel, the hospital is, I would say 12 minutes.
The hotel. I'm worried about the hotel so much as where you're on site. And not to get too graphic, but
Yeah.
a kid cuts an artery.
Yeah.
They're going to bleed to death. Now, I don't care about MedFlight. I don't care that there's insurance. I want to know who's going to take care of that in a very short period of time before we lose a kid. Because I take it, if we okay this trip, and I understand parents have to okay it and all of that, but if we okay it, we're kind of putting our stamp of approval on it. And that's where I'm having a real problem.
Sure. The maximum distance that we would be 45 minutes away from the hospital.
With an open artery.
I'm not sure that's not been the same in certain trips, and I don't know where they've gone in Italy, Australia, but some of these countries don't have ambulances like we do every town over, so I'm not sure that that's even been the case in others.
I can attest to the fact that in Greece, the ambulance took 28 minutes.
Okay, but there was an ambulance, and it was reasonably close. I mean,
No, look-
I've been to all these areas, and I'm just saying, I know what it's like in Greece. I know what it's like in Guatemala. It's like night and day. I'm sorry. It
So
is.
my feeling on this, and I appreciate Mr. Phelps's feelings, and I've, to be honest, ladies, I've sort of struggled with this for the past couple of weeks too. It's for a couple of reasons. A, I think that it's a different kind of trip. I mean, it's a different kind of trip than we've done in the past. We've worked with EA, we've worked with large companies before, and we've gone to sort of non-third world destinations. So I think the element of sort of the unknown is a little bit more here, which is where I think Mr. Phelps's concerns come from, and I agree with a lot of his concerns. But I think on the other hand, I think this is an amazing opportunity at a real humanistic thing that kids could do that maybe might not ever be able to do throughout their whole lives. I know it's going to be a smaller group and it's a different kind of trip. I know there's not a lot of as many resources on the ground where you're talking about going, but I guess isn't that what it's all about? Isn't that what we're trying to do here, is trying to help people who have less resources than we do? So I guess I have been a little bit torn as well. I would hope that, I was hoping for a little bit more in writing as far as, what would be on the ground as far as medical support for kids. But, you know, I got to admit, I've been a little bit torn on this as well. But I agree with Mr. Phelps and his feelings on it, but I also feel as though that I don't want to be telling a parent who might understand the risks and be willing to send their child because of the amazing social reward that they would get from it too. I don't want to tell them no, that I know better than this particular parent. Go ahead, Tom.
The only thing is, you know, for my training, you know, and as limited as it might be and not medical training, is that arterial bleeding, you have maybe 10 to 12 minutes to get that stopped. And that's a tourniquet type, you know.
I appreciate where Mr. Phelps, I think everybody, Mr. Phelps, Mr. Norris, everyone has great questions because we have had some unfortunate circumstances. And so I think just Dan brings up a great point. I am in support of this, and I very much appreciate the questions that everyone's asking, because I think the point of that is people need to be very clear about what they are or are not offered and what they are or are not going to get. And I think if parents have all that information, which might not be clearly spelled out again, then they should have to make that choice. Because I think if you go to college and you're 18, and suddenly a year later you can't technically, I guess, legally tell your child what they can and can't do if they're going to pay for it themselves, I don't see that as a host of difference. Now, granted, that sounds stupid because we are responsible for these children, and that does make the situation different. But I think the benefits outweigh the risks, and I do think that Mr. Phelps brings a very good point of just being very clear about your further destination. Write that on out so people know exactly what they're going to do so they can have those choices.
Sure.
Because that wouldn't be a fully informed choice if you didn't tell them it is 45 minutes away, and to make sure that they do staff them 24/7. Those legitimate things we want to know and take for granted in the U.S., people want to know.
Yes, okay, agreed.
And, you know, we live in a scary world. I mean,
We
you know,
do.
no matter what the destination would be, whether it be Paris or the Middle East or wherever it is that we might go, or New York City or LA, we live in a scary world. So I guess anything could happen anywhere. But where Mr. Phelps is coming from, I know, is wanting to make sure we take care of our kids and make sure our kids are as safe as they can possibly be. But I also think this would be an outstanding educational and lifetime experience. So I feel good about the mission. I feel good about your initiative. I'd be lying if I said I didn't have elevated concern about some of the other trips that we've run.
Maybe write out like a section on medical about how close the ambulances are, where the hospitals are, like write out the names of the hospitals, like literally list them out. Maybe a security name, like are there police stations, do they do that, what do you have for security? You mentioned before you might have access to a security person that you dropped before. Maybe that'll make people feel better if you have that security escort with you. Might be something to think about.
Yeah, and I would like to see all that written out before I would vote on it. So I'm going to make a motion to table it until we see some of that more information.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
Before we vote on that, also, ladies, can you look at considering adding another chaperone? Just talk among yourselves, look at that possibility. I mean, make me feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
First of all, I respect the fact you say you're going to take them all to the hospital. But if a kid's in a hospital for 3 days, we're not going to have 11 kids sitting in a hospital waiting room in Guatemala. These kids, you know, if you had two chaperones, one could be there and the other kids could get back to what they're supposed to be there doing and whatever, depending on what that injury might be. Also, on your application here, or your thing there, can we look at rewording to the fact that the trip will leave no earlier than April 14th and return no later than April 23rd? Again, with Miss Walsh, we got away from being gone 2 days, 3 days extra. That would give you, if you had to leave on a Friday, that would be fine. But I don't want to start getting backed up into Wednesday and Thursday and say the kids are out 3 days of classroom.
I think that's why we worded it that way, to make sure that they wouldn't miss any
Right,
additional school.
but just so the parents have arranged, the earliest they'll leave is the 14th, the latest they would be back is the 23rd.
Perfect.
We're in MCAS neighborhood that day.
Yeah, it's a good point, and you've done it for the other one.
Right, and we've done it for all those other trips, and
Yeah,
we
it's
told
a
them
good
not to
point.
leave on
And the
that.
chaperone's a good idea, Mike.
And just on the application here, just kind of a nitpicky thing, you might want to take a look at, it says below is the bi-weekly payment cycle.
That's correct.
It's bi-monthly, no?
No, it's bi-weekly.
November 4th, November 18th?
Bi-weekly, that's twice a month, that's every 2 weeks. Weekly and then bi-weekly.
I see, okay. Never mind.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess if we could do, gotcha. Go ahead. So I guess, so the motion on the table is that we would
And there's a
table
second.
this for a week?
Table till the next meeting, I'd second that.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much, that's a vote.
You're getting there.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, we're getting there.
Good job.
Okay, next up on tonight's agenda, under new business, we have fundraisers. We have 8 in total. We have 3 for the Rockland High School. There's a meat raffle for the class of 2017 in March. Amazon Smile for the class of 2018 was ongoing, and the meat raffle for the girls soccer in October. Rogers Middle School has 5, the RMS pack for all of them is Box Tops for Education, raffle baskets, Shamrock Classic in March, one of our all personal favorites, the Scholastic Book Fair in November, and the gift card sales for November and December. So we have 8 total fundraisers. Motion to approve 8, and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. That's a vote. Up next on tonight's agenda is the 2016 Community Education Adult Classes. Dr. Cron?
I recommend the adoption of all of these classes, particularly like the new golfer program and chair yoga. But
Is Mr. Retzlis teaching that new golfer program? Because
I-
after playing golf with him last week, I'm wondering what he was really doing all day.
yeah, that was disturbing. Yeah, absolutely.
Did he use
Yeah.
the hand wedge or the foot
I don't-
wedge?
I
No, I'm telling
know.
you, he was hitting the ball 3 feet from the pin from 100 yards
I
out.
can attest, it was impressive. It was
Yeah.
impressive.
He was
Just to give
probably
some,
asleep, actually.
just to give it proper due with of all the different offerings that are being offered here for the adult education program. There is an all levels computer skills class, there's chair yoga, developing your inner self, English for speakers of other languages, monk's cloth, Afghans is Swedish weaving, numerology if folks are interested in that, dance workout, intro to 5 tarot card reading with Patty Sheets, quilting, the new golfer program we just mentioned, a paint party, cooking with Sarah Hologitis, on authentic Greek cooking, fit over 50, gentle yoga, Reiki, sewing for the holidays, and I know Mr. Norris's favorite, Zumba. Yeah. So there's a lot of great, there's a lot of great things right there.
Would you say you're going to do the quilting?
Yeah, I'm going to do the quilting class.
So do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Next on tonight's agenda,
Too funny.
we have the technology plan. Dr. Cron.
Well, I guess I'm wondering for the committee if you have any questions. I know we have Mr. Wells here to answer any questions about the plan.
Looks pretty good. Looks really good.
Very
I will
comprehensive.
tell
Yeah.
you, just because this is an opportunity to acknowledge Mr. Wells. The Rockland Public Schools are just incredibly fortunate to have Tim Wells in this district, and I can tell you from my experience that he is second to none. I know everyone in the district agrees, so that doesn't mean we didn't read your plan, but we're very fortunate. So,
Well written and condensed.
and there's color too. It's
There is color.
Yeah.
That's nice to look at.
Pictures, graphs.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to accept?
A motion to accept.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Wells,
you.
for all you do. Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda, reappointments. Dr. Cron, any comments about reappointments?
I highly recommend you appoint the new superintendent of schools. He's a really good guy, and
Can we
also
table that?
I heard he's all right.
absolutely. I'll call my mortgage broker and see if they. I highly recommend the reappointment of all of those listed.
All those listed, by the way, include administrators, teachers on professional status, teachers eligible for reappointment, non-union support staff, custodians and maintenance, nurses, business office personnel, paraprofessionals, special education drivers, 11 and 12-month contracts, the daycare staff, the cafeteria, and school security.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye, thank you very much. That's a vote. Personnel information, Dr. Cron.
You just appointed everyone.
We have a relatively short list of appointments, primarily daycare, a few paraprofessionals. I recommend that we make a motion to accept all of these personnel appointments.
But we don't have those.
No, that's okay. We didn't
They're
vote
just
on it.
information.
I wouldn't do that if I were you. I would just,
All right.
yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Done deal.
Thank you.
Last on tonight's agenda is public service announcements, and I'll start with our fabulous student representative tonight. I know you had some things that you wanted to tell us about.
Yeah, a member of the band wanted me to bring up that there's an RHS band and chorus meet raffle on October 6th from 7:30 to 9:30. And I just wanted to mention that this whole month our school has been raising money for breast cancer by putting jars in classrooms and like making a competition out of whichever classroom like raises the most money, they'll win a breakfast. And then on top of that, if $1,000 gets raised, then several teachers will dye their hair pink. And if you go on makingstrides.acsevents.org, and search up the team name Rockland High, then you can donate to the breast cancer walk.
I want to get Mr. Cron to dye his.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I heard teachers. Has any administration jumped onto the pink hair challenge yet?
Kathy did it last year, so.
We
Yeah.
voted to reappoint
Nice,
me.
very
already.
nice. Then in return, you must dye your hair pink.
Kathy did
All
it.
things
Yeah.
better if you-
Yeah,
Mr.
she did
Harrison,
it
I
last
think that you'd
Good
look
job.
great like
I
that.
would think you would look nice with a mohawk, a pink mohawk.
My kids would
yeah.
love that, yep.
Mr. Mills, your hair is white, it would probably really
Yeah,
throw
I
that
know, mine's
high.
white, yeah.
Mrs. Henderson.
I do not have anything to add.
I don't either.
Mr. Mills.
I don't think, thank you.
All quiet for me tonight, Mr. Norris.
No, just for all our kids out there, probably, maybe I don't know what you have for homework tonight, but if you don't have any homework, to tune in the presidential debate, because it will be quite interesting. I even have one away at college who said he's going to watch the presidential debate instead of Monday Night Football.
Wow.
So I think it's something these kids have never seen before. Don't forget to get out to sports. Football team suffered a tough loss. They've had a tough time with injuries. The soccer teams are doing unbelievable, which is fantastic. Get out and support all those kids. And lastly, he's not here, but before we come back to our next meeting, October 4th is Mr. Retzlis's last day as whatever we're calling him at this point.
Yes, he's at my beck and college.
Right.
I saw on Twitter that
Use
somebody
him,
called
Colin.
him something else.
Yeah, people have called him a lot of things. But October 4th will be his last day, so again, we already thanked him, but we thank him for his service. And I know he's helped Dr. Cron a lot on these last couple months, so we wish him well in his retirement, and he should maybe pick up golf a little bit more. So that's it, Mr. Phelps.
No, just like Mark said, support our kids, not only on the athletic fields, but when they come knocking on your door for all these fundraisers and things like that. The money goes to very, very good things within our schools and helps the teachers, helps the school budget. So in any way that you can, support our kids. Obviously, the athletic events, the concerts, all these things that come along are also very enjoyable, but we appreciate anything you can do to support them.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a motion to adjourn from Mr.
Second.
Mills and a second from Mr. Norris. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's a vote. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.